So you want to become an Angular developer, but you're not quite sure where to start? Perfect. You are in exactly the right place. We're going to take that whole journey and simplify it into one clear, actionable path. Let's get right into it. First things first, if you've ever looked at one of those gigantic developer roadmaps online and just felt your heart sink a little, take a deep breath. That is a completely normal reaction. The sheer number of tools and concepts can look, well, absolutely massive. But here's the good news, okay? You don't have to learn all of that at once. Not even close. The real key is having a structured plan. So together, right now, we're going to build that plan focusing on what actually matters to get you from zero to your very first deployed app. Every great building needs a solid foundation, right? For us as developers, that means really understanding what Angular is and, just as importantly, getting the right tools set up on our machines. So what is Angular, really? Well, at its core, it's this super powerful framework from Google for building modern web applications. You know, think about apps like Gmail or Google Drive. They're so fast, so responsive, and you almost never have to hit the refresh button. That's the kind of magic Angular gives you.
Now, the secret ingredient to Angular's power is something called TypeScript. The easiest way to think about it is it's like JavaScript with superpowers. It adds this safety layer that helps you catch errors before your users do, which makes it possible to build these huge, robust applications that don't just fall apart.
To get started, you really only need 4 things. First, a code editor like VS Code. That's basically your digital workshop. Then you need Node.js and NPM. That's the engine that runs all your code. Third is the Angular CLI, which is like a magic wand that builds new projects for you. And finally, Git, which is kind of like a save game button for your code. Get these 4 installed, and you are ready to rock.
All right, now for the really fun part. Let's talk about how Angular apps are actually put together. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like you've been given a giant set of digital Legos.
The single most important idea in all of Angular is the component. A component is just a self-contained piece of the user interface, like a search bar or a button or a little profile card. It neatly bundles the HTML for the structure, the CSS for the style, and the logic all in one tidy place.
And just like with real Legos, you start by building small, simple components. Then you snap them together to create bigger, more complex features. This whole idea of reusability is what makes Angular so incredibly efficient for building really massive applications. Okay, next up is a term that sounds way more complicated than it is: dependency injection. So imagine your component needs to get some user data from a server. Instead of writing all that code inside the component itself, it just asks for a user data service. Then Angular just injects or provides that service, which keeps your component's code super clean and focused.
Let's think of it this way. Your component doesn't need to know how to make a pizza. It just has to say, hey, I need a pizza, and the dependency injection system delivers it right to its doorstep. This keeps your components clean, focused on doing their one job, and makes them so much easier to test later on.
Theory is awesome, but let's be real. The only way to truly learn this stuff is by building. So let's talk about how to turn your code into an actual portfolio that's going to get you noticed.
Here's your starter pack. Seriously, a to-do list is the perfect first project to really nail down the basics. After that, building a weather app forces you to learn how to get data from somewhere else on the internet, a critical skill. And finally, a simple blog is where you'll get introduced to routing, which is how you create multi-page experiences in these single-page apps.
Okay, so once you've built something cool, you gotta share it with the world. Deployment can seem pretty scary, but the Angular CLI makes it shockingly simple. You just run one command, ng-build, and it packages your whole app into a tiny folder. From there, you just upload that folder to a service like Netlify or Vercel. That's pretty much it.
So, you've got the basics under your belt. Now it's time to add a few more powerful tools to your arsenal. These are the concepts that really separate a beginner from an intermediate developer.
State management. Fancy term, right? It's just all about how your app keeps track of its data and reacts when that data changes. For years, RxJS was the way to go. It's incredibly powerful. But now we also have something called signals, a brand new, much simpler way to create values that automatically update your UI. Honestly, for beginners, signals are a fantastic place to start.
You always want your apps to feel fast and snappy, so start thinking about performance from day one. Use the production build command to make your app smaller. Use something called trackby to help Angular update lists more efficiently. And definitely explore lazy loading and deferrable views. These are amazing ways to make sure your app only loads what the user needs, exactly when they need it.
And finally, testing. Please don't be intimidated by this. At its heart, a unit test is just a tiny little program you write to make sure a single piece of your code, like one function, does exactly what you think it does. It's your safety net, and it makes sure you don't accidentally break things as your app gets bigger.
All right, you've learned the theory, you've built some cool projects. Now let's talk about that final mile, landing your first developer job.
I can almost guarantee you are going to get a question just like this one. They're not trying to trick you, I promise. They just want to see if you really get the fundamental relationship between these two technologies. So, how would you answer that?
Here's how you knock that question out of the park. First, you state that Angular itself is written in TypeScript. It's not just an optional add-on, it's fundamental. Then, you explain the benefits. It helps prevent bugs by checking your code as you type, it enables amazing tools like auto-completion, and it's the reason we can build huge, complex projects that are actually manageable. That is a home run answer.
And remember, learning the code is not a solo mission. The Angular community is massive and incredibly supportive. Get on the official Discord server when you get stuck. Follow some key Angular folks on social media, and start the project on GitHub to show some love. You'll learn way faster and feel a lot more connected.
And there you have it. That's the simplified path to becoming an Angular developer. We've gone from the basic setup to core concepts, project ideas, and even some interview prep. The map is officially in your hands, so the only question left is, what are you going to build first?